Hello, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the PBA bowlers versus the amateur bowlers. So in this video, we will answer the questions of what's the amateur bowler's weakness? What is the amateur bowler lacking? How can a PBA bowler take advantage? What happens when transition hits? What's the friction spot? And what does burned up mean? So in this video, we will answer all those questions. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So let's get into the first question here. What's the amateur bowler's weakness? They play the same line. They rely on miss to the right. They rely on miss to the left. They make minimal moves, and they don't move soon enough. And so all these weaknesses play into why they do so good on the house shot. So keep that in mind. So what happens when transition hits? Friction spot burns up, the oil line shifts or moves. There's possible carry down, the ball hooks too early, the ball quits down lane, and splits now happen. So now we need to answer the question of what's burned up mean? And what do you mean that the oil line shifts or moves? That don't make any sense. And so you have to know what these things mean. So burning up, and you'll hear this a lot in league. You'll hear this a lot in tournaments. They'll say, "Oh, the spot's all burned up," or the oil is moving. The transition is hitting, and so now, yeah, there's carry down. It could be a lot of stuff happening, but that is transition. Is when things start to change. Let's go ahead and answer the question of what is the friction spot. So the friction spot is the free hook zone. It is a spot where your ball leaves the oil and then starts hooking. So what I mean by that is when it exits the pattern. So at the end of the pattern, let's say the pattern is 40 feet, it then exits the pattern and starts rolling toward the pocket. And so as games go on, the balls hitting that zone will absorb oil, but also push oil around. That's what I mean by oil shifting or moving. And so hopefully that makes sense. Is the ball, that friction zone is where your break point is. And so it's where the ball will pick up and then create the right angle toward the pocket. And that is your friction zone. When oil is being moved or carried down, well, then that friction spot will probably change, and then you'll have to move, which is called transition. And that's why you gotta stay ahead of transition. So what does burned up mean? Well, you as a bowler will see the ball hook earlier and more violently, or the ball will lose overall energy. Early, the ball will be smooth, but late, the ball jumps and quits. That's just because that zone is getting drier and drier, which is where the phrase burned up comes from. So again, that spot that you were playing, you can no longer play because it's all burned up now. So that's when you have to move. And most of the time that's either a 2-in-1 move or sometimes a 2-in-2 move. And what I mean by that is it's 2 at the arrows and 2 with your break point. So let's say that you were playing, let's say that the friction spot was at 5 and you were playing 10 to 5. Well, maybe you can't play there no more, so then you make a 2-in-2 move left. So now you're playing 12 to 7. Now that's for right-handers. Now for left-handers, it's always the opposite, so always keep that in mind. All right, so how do PBA bowlers take advantage? Well, here's how they take advantage. They move left before the amateurs do. Amateurs usually try to soften speed or help the ball along. Move 2 to 3 boards left at the arrows. Get into more oil, ball down to shiny pearl, open their angle. This creates length and angle down lane. Shift the break point in by a board or two to use fresh friction. Use the friction and avoid the burn. So again, this is how PBA bowlers take advantage. And this is what amateurs usually try to do. They try to soften speed and help the ball along. So if they're going to do that, that's when you, as a PBA bowler, need to take advantage. That's when you move two to three boards left at the arrows and get into more oil. Think about that as you bowl. I'm speaking to all the PBA bowlers out there. If you want to compete in a lot of these local tournaments, amateur tournaments, if you want to win, again, you got to have the right strategy in place in order to match up well. So that way you don't get embarrassed by some amateur bowler beating you with a 265 and with you a 225, because that will happen. I almost guarantee it. All right, so what's the psychological edge for PBA bowlers? So once the amateurs see you move and striking and their line goes away, well, then they panic and speed up, grab it, and then they start to miss worse, which causes them to implode. And this is what happens. Now, I don't care if it's amateurs or pros. This always happens because if you are bowling in a tournament and somebody else starts to do really good, well, then that weighs on somebody else that's not doing as good because they know that they have to keep up with the scoring pace. So if they see you now bowling 250s, well, then that puts pressure on them. And then, especially with amateurs, they can't hit a board, they can't hit their target. And so it's, let's say that they're repeating misses, maybe 2 to 3 boards. Well, then maybe that may now be 5 to 6 boards. And that's when maybe they'll throw a gutter ball, or they go extremely high, maybe they go way left. And so that's when that happens, or they start to miss spares. And that's normally what happens, is when pressure is on, that's when you start to make key mistakes. And so as a PBA bowler, you're more experienced, and so take advantage of that. So that way you don't have to worry as much. And so if you're ahead of the transition and you know the area to play and you're matched up well, then now you're putting a whole lot more pressure on the people that you are competing against. All right, so what's the sequence? There's 5 steps here. So step 1, stay patient early. Step 2, watch for transition. Step 3, beat them on the move left. Step 4, ball down and open your angle. And step 5, let them self-destruct, because that will happen. All right, so what's the truth? Let's get down to it. Amateur bowlers don't beat PBA bowlers. The lane and the pattern does. Once the condition changes, they don't have another gear. House shot bowlers are dangerous early. There's no doubt about it. They are professional house pattern bowlers, which is what I always say. So if the PBA bowlers can survive and make the right moves, then the lane will eventually expose the house pattern bowler. The best bowler doesn't just play where the ball hooks. They play where the ball is now versus where it used to be. And so that's the truth of the matter. PBA bowlers can definitely win against about any amateur bowler. But if they don't have the right strategy and they're not matched up well, well, then that's when problems occur. And so always know your strategy coming in, prepare well, and know what works on the house pattern before you go do these local tournaments. All right, so hopefully you learned something in this video. I know for me, I've done a lot of research doing these last couple of videos, and so it's only from experience, guys. I only do these videos because I've been through this. I've experienced all the downfalls, asking questions of why. And so hopefully you guys learned something in these videos, because I know I have, just by creating them. And so this not only helps me, hopefully this helps you by me learning this stuff. That way you don't have to go through the same struggles that I have. So again, if you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe, and then I will see you in the next one coming up. And thanks for watching.